My name is Larry Rebecca, and I've been in Hollister since 1975. Next month it'll be 45 years. My wife and I were bilingual teachers, and we taught for 34 years here in Hollister. So we've seen a lot of changes, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It's accelerated a lot. We had a period of time when there was a moratorium in the early 2000s for 5, 6 years. There was a moratorium that was implemented by the state because the sewage system was a
little higher.
Yeah, okay. That sounds all right? Okay. Anyway, there was a moratorium for a period of about 5 or 6 years until the new sewage plant was built. And then when it was completed, the Great Recession hit. So we had a relatively, 10 years, 12 years, there was basically no growth. But now we're facing rapid growth, and the speakers are going to speak to the issue, and I'm just going to introduce them. The first speaker we have is Jan Saxton. She's from Aromas, and we had some experience with Jan. She is the past president of the Aromas Grange, and she was on the Citizens Advisory Committee for San Benito County General Plan. And also she was a proponent for Measure J. Some of you remember Measure J, which banned fracking. She was one of the proponents of Measure J. And so Jan, I'm going to ask you to come up, I'll just take it out. Okay.
Yeah, we can't walk. We have to sit here. We're not allowed to move. Thank you so much for coming. It's very exciting to be here. Andy and Mary have asked me to talk a little bit about being on the General Plan Update Committee with my friend Vicky Montoya and Franz, and I wish I could remember everybody's names. We had a great committee. The supervisors all nominated folks, and it was really well balanced. There were men and women. There were people from all walks of life. We had one of the great the rangers from the Pinnacles who cared very much about the south part of the county and protecting the land. And we were faced with an overpaid, out-of-town consultant that the supervisors brought in to do the general plan update for our county. And at the very first meeting, they sat us down with this PowerPoint presentation and this printout, and they asked us, would you like 2%, 5%, or 10% growth cap? And we just stood there stunned because we already had a 1% growth cap, and we thought that was very, very good. We liked it. And they kept pushing for growth. They kept pushing us to include proposed developments in the general plan as we were updating. And we said, we're not planners. That's not our job. Our job is to represent the citizens of this county. That's what we're here for. They wanted to hear absolutely nothing from us. It was so frustrating. It was really, really frustrating. It was very clear from the beginning that they had been given their marching orders by somebody, and it was developer driven, and they didn't care about citizen input. We were just a checkbox on a form. They had to have us. They had to put up with us. So after several meetings, the committee actually broke up into teams. They took the various elements of the general plan. They did the research. They updated each element. They turned the thing back into the supervisors. The supervisors took it in the back room. They added these nodes. They added back in that huge development that was voted down by the citizens at the top of Highway 25, Rancho something, I can never remember. They just penciled that back in. Well, we'll get to that eventually. And I was so frustrated and discouraged. I just wanted nothing more to do with local government in San Benito County. It was a sham, and I'm sorry to say that because we had a really great group of people working on it. So that was the GPAC experience. Right now, as I drive out of Prindale into Aromas, there's a huge green billboard for Yes on Measure K, and it says controlled growth and create jobs and generate tax revenue, and it's all not true. It's all absolutely backward. You don't control growth by approving more housing developments on the edge of the freeway. That's the worst kind of possible planning you can do. We need infill, we need affordable housing, we need housing in walkable neighborhoods, we need housing that's near services. That's just a lie. Number one, it says create jobs. They're going to put in hotels and gas stations, basically. Those are minimum wage jobs. Those are not the jobs we want our kids and our grandkids to have. And the people who get those jobs, they're not going to be able to afford to buy the houses that they're building. That's right? So they're going to have to commute from somewhere else to those jobs. And the people who buy those houses are going to have to commute somewhere else to go work. So the traffic impact of those developments on those 101 nodes is doubled. It's just crazy. They're not good jobs. We need to attract industries that are compatible with our rural, beautiful county and our agricultural base. There are industries out there, I'm sure there are. We can get them. We have to quit focusing on balancing the budget based on developers' fees, because those developers' fees balance the budget this year, but the cost of that residential development goes on forever and is way overbalances whatever we get in fees. And also we need to stop letting them do that in lieu of affordable housing fees. Oh, we'll just take more money and let them build more expensive houses that nobody in our county can afford to buy. That makes us a bedroom community. We don't like it. You may pause now. And it's not going to generate tax revenue. The tax revenue from those businesses is not anywhere close to what it's going to cost for the additional services that are going to be required by those housing developments. I'm sorry, it just makes me crazy. Yes. So, we're very excited about No on K. I live in Aromas. Everywhere I drive, there's little No on K yellow signs in front of all the houses. There's no little green signs, Yes on K. Nobody wants this. We need to vote it down. So you have to talk to your friends and neighbors, make sure they turn out on March and vote no on Measure K. But, even more important, have you heard about the initiative that we're launching? This initiative will put all future development decisions in the hands of the voters. Back to the people! This has worked in Ventura County and Napa County so well that they ran it for 20 years and they're renewing it for another 20. It doesn't mean we can't have development. It does not control development. It simply puts the decisions in the hands of the people who will be most affected. We can build commercial centers if we want. We can build more housing developments if we want, but we're going to put them where they make sense, where we want them to be, where it's not being, the decisions are not being driven by developer money. And that's what's been going on in this county, and it's got to stop. So we need signatures on that initiative. We need to get out the vote in November. We need to take the decisions out of the hands of the supervisors, because if you have 5 supervisors and the developers with big money get to 3 of them, we're screwed. We've got no say. It's over. That's all I got.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker will be Rob Mendiola. He's a former San Benito County Planning Director. He was a director for 24 years. Rob Mendiola.
Good evening.
Closer.
Oh, boy. Good evening. How's that? Okay.
There we go.
I think Jan covered it pretty well, but let me go over a couple of fine points
He
here.
has all the, real information.
I got a little bit. The proponents of this have misled throughout the entire time. It's really disgusting to me. Among their first claims was, if you don't do this C3, then the C1 zoning is much less restrictive and they'll be able to do so much. Well, quite frankly, that is just a fallacy. And I don't know where they come up with this, because a C1 requires an approval just like any other zoning or development. And it's discretionary. The county can say no. The C1 district has 11 listed uses and 14 named uses. The C3 district that they have created has 30 listed uses and 53 named uses. This is not to mention that in the C1 you can build all the way up to 30 feet high. In the new C3, less restricted, you can go to 65 feet. Figure out how that works. The other thing about the C3 is it's pretty much endless, because in the text it says if you put it in the master plan and the county approves it, you can do it. So it's just pretty much endless what you can do in the C3 zone as they wrote it. It is among the most lenient zoning ordinances out there, period. So, another thing that they bring up when you point these things out, oh, you have to let them do it now, or we're going to be responsible for taking their property. Well, that's a fallacy, a complete fallacy, because first of all, the initiative or the referendum stayed the action of the county. It is not, the zoning as they adopted it is not effective, because the people of this county signed a petition that qualified for the referendum we are going to vote for. So there is no zoning there, there is no taking. The zoning that existed prior to what their action was is still in effect, which still gives them some uses and allows them to continue using the property in the manner that they have for years. So the concept that, oh, you're going to be taking property, we're going to be suing for millions of dollars is a total fallacy. And then they quote a South Carolina case where they left the guy with a small sand dune and couldn't do anything, and it's simply not applicable, because all the properties that have been designated have existing and permitted uses. So another one of their fallacies is, oh, the general plan says you got to have nodes, we got to zone this, and we got to do this, and they act like they're in some kind of big hurry. Well, they adopted the general plan in 2015. So where have they been for 5 years if it was so urgent? And the reality is you don't have to do it immediately. You can do it in a number of different ways, and among the things you can do is you can change the general plan. You don't have to continue to live with a bad plan. The other things that could occur is it could be phased, it could be timed. There's a number of different ways to deal with the general plan and how it is applicable. But having to rush to C3 zoning is not the requirement. Part of the big fallacy on this whole thing, and it's just amazing, is that they did it without environmental or economic analysis. Now, the California Environmental Quality Act requires that you do an environmental analysis at the earliest possible stage of development. Well, they have a couple of these nodes have big plans already, and they're giving away the zoning without any updating of any environmental work. They're relying on on some environmental work that was done 6, 7 years ago, and it's simply not applicable. Is the traffic the same as it was 6, 7 years ago? How about water situations? How about who knows what? They simply didn't do the environmental work necessary. The economic work, I mean, they anecdotally say, oh, it'll bring in tax money. They don't bring up the fact that there will be enormous and additional costs. You're not going to be able to send police, fire, and every other service to 4 nodes out on 101 from existing facilities without additional costs. The additional costs may very well outweigh whatever they bring in. It's just a ridiculous notion. Another fallacy is that, oh, this is smart growth. We're going to require architectural style. Give me a break. They say this is smart growth. Well, it simply isn't. It doesn't preserve open space. It doesn't preserve natural beauty. It doesn't create a neighborhood that's walkable, that is usable, and has a strong neighborhood cohesiveness. It does not meet the requirements of smart growth as defined by the Department of Urban Development. The smart growth movement stemmed from the Awani principles in the early 2000s, and the smart growth organizations have grown from that. And believe me, this doesn't come close to being a walkable community. It's auto-oriented, and that's what it's aimed at. And then in concluding, I just want to say that, we're in a hurry to, we're going to get this revenue, we're going to solve all our problems. Well, the county should have been thinking forward. Some of the same supervisors that are feeding you this, when in about 2007 or 8, they reduced the traffic impact fees some 80% and left $28 to $30 million on the table as of now, and still have to raise them to the point that is necessary. They went to the voters and got you to agree to another sales tax. Well, that isn't bad enough. They also reduced the requirement for affordable housing. It was on there. There was affordable housing requirement. They eliminated it, the same people. And so why is there no affordable housing? Because they eliminated it. They took the burden away from the development community. They're not going to do it on their own when they can make big money without it. So those are among the fallacies and stories that I have to tell. And with that, I'm going to turn it over.
I got a question. What is the potential for the houses being built out there if they were okay with stuff? I mean, what is the actual potential of them putting, how many houses out there?
What the ordinance allows is 30 per node, and allegedly 1,400 square feet.
Okay, I'm just worried about the amount.
Yeah, it's 30 nodes. So
Per node.
30 times 4 would be 120 houses.
Okay, now what about the other nodes?
No, all 4 nodes, 30 houses per node, 120 houses.
Aren't there any other nodes? I thought there was like another 12.
Oh.
I was like, yeah.
Those they haven't dealt with, to my knowledge.
Okay, but that's why I'm asking, what is the potential? Say this does.
Well, I think, and I could be wrong, I think there are 16 total nodes.
Right.
So
that's how many houses potential?
I use a smartphone now.
Well, I mean, that's what we got to say, because I had somebody on Facebook telling me, oh, the city okayed this many houses, that many houses, and then it hit me, wait a minute. Was that a 2-3 vote? Or did everybody vote on it to get these houses in? So I said, so what are you trying to tell me? Everybody okayed this or not? I said, because you make it sound like the city went ahead and said, oh yeah, no problem. So it should be no big deal to put houses out there. And then when I went, wait a minute, 30 units, that's 4. When I found out about the others, and I was like, wait a minute.
Let me jump back to the environmental issues. Now, on some of these nodes out at 101, there's no water, or very minimal water. There's no services, there's no, it would be a big deal to see those go.
Well,
So,
that's what I'm saying. They're making it sound like, oh, those are just caretakers' places and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute.
as I said last time, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger.
Well, I know. I just want people to think about that, because once you open the door, you're letting them in, and then the next thing, well, guess what? We just got done putting something. We just need to put a little bit more here. Put a little bit more there.
Let's hear the rest of the speakers. There was one thing I forgot to say, and it's really important. They want us to trade away our unreplaceable, beautiful green space for this really bad development idea, and we've got to stop it. That's all.
Maybe we hold questions until all.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Andy suggests that we wait until the end, then we'll take questions from the audience. Our next speaker is Sam Farr, who is our retired congressman, and there's a special place in my heart for Sam. He has a vision, and I got to know Sam, 25 years ago when my wife was doing citizenship here in Hollister, and I come to find out that we were both Peace Corps volunteers in Colombia. But Sam has a special heart for San Benito County. He has a vision as what could happen here in San Benito County. So it's my pleasure to introduce Sam.
Thank you, Larry. I'm glad you let me sit down. I'm an old man now. You may wonder why I'm here. I'm probably the only one in this room that's not a resident of San Benito County, and I have no vote, but I still have a voice. And my life experience has really been around development pressures. I grew up in Carmel, and my father was in politics, but I never thought I would get into politics. And a lot of his politics was about land use. And I was probably a high school student hearing all these words about density development and clustering and things like that, so you wouldn't just have one house on every little acre of land and just, so it's just concepts. And then, lo and behold, I became a member of the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, and I spent the next 42 years of my life in elective office, representing for 6 years Monterey County. Now, I represented Big Sur, Carmel Valley, the Highlands, which is between Carmel and Big Sur, the Point Lobos area, the city of Carmel, Pebble Beach, Pacific Grove, and Monterey. If you don't think there were a lot of development pressures, particularly in the unincorporated area of Pebble Beach, Carmel Highlands, Big Sur, Carmel Valley, and my politics was we got to rewrite general plans and master plans, because this is all going to end up in sprawl, and led that effort to master plan Big Sur, to do, and I really got into land use planning. And I think my forte in politics was really always in the 13 years in the legislature and I was on the Resources Committee, to really emphasize support of the Coastal Commission and local organizations, local government, to empower them to have more tools to figure out visions for their communities based on sort sort of highest and best use. What struck me when I got into Congress and represented the area for 24 years, and members of Congress are all from districts, 435 members of Congress, and they each represent a district, and they're all proud about what they do. You know, in the Midwest, it's all the agriculture, and Texans are about cattle and oil and stuff like that, so they all kind of brag about this stuff. And people would say, well, what do you do in your district? And I said, well, we do so many things, but I thought, we sell scenery. People come from all over the world to look at scenery. And it always hit me when I drove through this county how incredibly beautiful it is. I mean, I bring my family over here in the wintertime. As I said, you know, I spent 2 years in Colombia, which is a beautiful country. It's really gorgeous. And I said, these hills when they're green remind me so much of what Colombia looks like. And then I got involved in really trying to help you in this county identify and get funding, because I figured, you know, San Benito County is so rich in resources. I mean, if you start in the south, most people even know they've never been into Yidra mines before it all burned down, but I was down there trying to make it into a national historic property. If you read the early history books, I mean really early, about California development, there's a whole chapter on the Yidra mine. It was one of the big hot spots to active mine way back in the 1850s. And so, and then the pinnacles just became obvious that I have the power to pass legislation because only Congress can make a national park. And nobody was doing anything about it. And I thought, you know, we'll upgrade this from a national monument to a national park. And then all the history of this town, of Hollister. I'm just thinking when I walked in this building, I said, this is gorgeous. I wasn't here when it was a restaurant. I said, this is still where he's making more money having weddings here than I ever did serving food here. So, you know, that somebody had the vision to build this building and then preserve it. San Benito County has so much to offer. And I think what is lacking is sort of this big vision about looking at all the little, we ought to be talking about nodes, but not nodes of development, nodes of preservation. Because this state, I mean, what we're so unique in the central part of California, this state has now almost 40 million people. The LA basin is so huge that in alone, if you just have market in the LA basin, you're in the 4th largest market in the world, just in that basin. And all the cultures that are in that basin, and all the languages and all the expression, all the stuff that can come out of it. But guess what they don't have? They don't have any rural areas left. The Chinese are now coming here. Middle-class Chinese are growing really fast. Do you think they want to go to LA? Or they want to go to, they want to go to Hollywood, but are they going to San Diego? Or San Francisco? No, maybe San Francisco because of the Chinese heritage, but what they want to see is rural California. They got all these fancy cities in China, but what they don't have is the Yosemites and the pinnacles. And so those of us who are sort of lucky that it didn't all sprawl out here, I think have this ability to really capture our history and our culture and the families that have lived here. You know, after all, you've got, you know, Donner Party family living in this county, and it goes way, way back. I was driving over here tonight, and when I came off 156 and got on 101, I thought, you know, 101, I'm driving on this highway just a short distance up to San Benito. This highway begins on the Mexican border and goes all the way up to the Canadian border, US 101. In California, there's 58 counties in California. This Highway 101 goes through about 17 of them, about a third of all the counties in California. Of those 17 counties, none of them have designed in their general plan a bunch of nodes right along the freeway to attract economic development. I mean, where was the thinking in this? The thinking was, and I read and heard from the supervisor, well, we need revenue. Yes, you do. Your county is one of the smallest counties in population and revenue in California. And it is a struggle. But it seems to me you don't kill the goose who lays the golden egg and getting mediocre. We don't even know how much revenue studies have ever been done. And as I read the nodes, you can put just a bunch of junk in the nodes. And yeah, it's got to be specific plan, but that's permissive actually in the code. It's a very poorly written piece of law. And there are so many exceptions to it that you're going to end up with probably just more of what's really ugly along 101. So my voice was that when I got called, I said, "Do you want to get it?" I said, "You know what?" When I read that, I said, "That's the worst thing that I drive that 101 all the time. I don't want to have traffic it's already bad enough coming in tonight. Just I'm getting right off the freeway and I'm immediately backed up past San Juan Bautista. We're on a Wednesday night. Took about 20 minutes to get into Hollister. So I think you have to defeat this measure because that opens up opportunity, and obviously the politics of defeating the measure is a politics you want to keep going on about, okay, we have said no because we don't like what you're doing, but this leads to what can we do? And there are so many people that would love helping you. The University of California, when Marina was developing after Fort Ord closed and had a very parochial idea about sort of building the whole town into fast food stuff, I said, right here, the gateway to the Monterey Peninsula, I don't think we want to have that being the opening door. And I brought down the University of California's School of Planning and Architecture, where they do these charrettes. They spend a weekend interviewing people and looking around and thinking, okay, here's kind of leaving with you is ideas. Just ideas that a lot of professionals have been able to put together. This county is ripe for something like that to get some professional help about how do we take this sort of county-wide vision. And obviously, as a mayor of a city, what you don't want is a bunch of unincorporated nodes that aren't even in the city. That you want the development where the infrastructure is, where you can. What are you doing? Are you going to build 30 houses each one of these nodes or whatever it is? Those houses, they're not going to be affordable houses. Who's going to be the people who run the gas stations? Because it seems like these are all going to have gas stations and fast food stores. Well, those salaries don't pay for market rate housing. You've got to have workforce housing, which is below market rate, and they're not developing that. So you're going to have a commute that just the workers in these nodes are going to have to commute in. If there are housing there, they have kids. Are there going to be any schools? No. Are the buses going to have to go there? Is it big now that it costs the school district more money to have to put these buses out to these nodes to pick up kids? And that is more commute. I mean, it just does not make sense that you would want to build these nodes up for the idea that maybe we'll get some gas tax revenue. Gas tax revenue goes back to communities based on population. Sales tax goes back based on what a portion of the sales tax. State gets some of it, you get the other. But you want those things to be inside urban areas or spheres of influences. And Hollister has so much still undeveloped space, underutilized, that could be more effectively utilized, a little more density downtown. It would help, if you build housing and apartments around, that's what Monterey's starting to do on Alvarado Street, and it just changed the nature of Alvarado was dead at 6 o'clock at night. And now that they've got a bunch of, and they put, the city really required that they put in elderly housing and affordable housing, and that city's streets are now alive at night because people are living upstairs from the stores. And they're using the restaurants and using the community services there. So if you really want to build the future of San Benito County and create a revenue base, think about building these nodes where they already exist and using the underutilized spaces in San Juan Bautista and Hollister. And then, yes, maybe you'll have a little bed and breakfast hotel like you have in Big Sur, a couple of them. down in the really beautiful areas. And I'll end with this. One of my best friends in Congress was Congressman George Miller from the Contra Costa area. George and I knew our fathers were both in the state senate. So we met each other when we were about 12 years old when our fathers were trying to take us off to father-son bonding. And they spent all the time in the bars and we went fishing. And George and I and he was in Congress for 30 years, one of the really great. I mean, he did more legislation than Kennedy did. And George was in charge of the Resources Committee in Congress. That's the whole resources of the United States, all the parks, all the Department of Interior, everything. And while I was in Congress, he said, Cynthia, his wife and I, we're going down to Santa Barbara for the weekend. And we're going to drive through your district. And I said, George, take the back road. I said, take Highway 25 that goes down by the Pinnacles. Because he knew I was working on the Pinnacles. And I said, and then you'll end up and go over into Fort Hunter Liggett, which there's a hotel in Fort Hunter Liggett that the Army set up, and stay there. And he came back to me in Congress. He said, Sam, I've been all over the United States. I've been in every national park. He says, this has been my responsibility. I have never seen anything as beautiful as Highway 25 in San Benito County. So, you've got this. You've got this incredible heritage that needs to be more effectively. I think that the future is all about interpreting, so that when you go through this county, the ability, maybe even apps and stuff that can interpret, the early families and how they lived here and how the native peoples lived here, and really making this place attractive because, first of all, California began here and it hasn't been ruined. So people can really get a sense of what early California was all about and part of our heritage. If we just be the only county of the 17 that are along Highway 101 that builds these nodes, I think it's going to just give a bad message. It's like, as you drive 101, why would I want to get off here? If this is the front door, what's the rest of it look like? I don't want to even think about it. So if these hills are preserved and then really we do some good promotional work to get people off 101 and through here and utilize the resources that you have, the economic development of this county will be really good and strong. There are other counties to look at. Mariposa is the gateway to Yosemite. It doesn't even have a city. The Mariposa isn't a city. It's an unincorporated community. But they've really branded themselves as a gateway community. You want to be branding yourselves as a gateway to the Pinnacles. Soledad's done a pretty good job for the western side. And it's interesting, I'll end on that Soledad built a lot of schlocky stuff, a lot of, McDonald's, and it just sort of looks like, the southern end of it looks like Las Vegas. There's so many lights and everything. It's just ugly coming off the freeway. And the mayor told me that the best thing that ever happened to Soledad was getting the Pinnacles National Park. He said, developers are coming to us. We were begging people to come here. They never wanted to come. They now want to build hotels in Soledad. They want to open restaurants and hotels. They really want to be the gateway to the national park because it's drawing so many visitors. But remember, they don't have anything on the western side. There's no camping over there. There's nothing. All you can go is up there's a parking lot and you go on trails. The eastern side, your side, has everything. Take advantage of what you know in your hearts and minds is your favorite parts of this county. And let's, after you defeat the nodes, let's build knowledge.
Thank you, Sam. Our next speaker is Mayor Ignacio Velasquez. And we want to, first of all, thank you for letting us use the vault tonight. Thank you. And Ignacio has become an ally of ours. We just know on K. I'm just getting to know Ignacio, and the more I get to know him, the more more I like them.
Thank you very much. You know, I come from this crazy world called Hollister City Council. You might see us on the news a lot fighting, and you know what that's all about, right?
Yeah.
It's about growth. It's about growth. And the majority cannot stand that there are two people saying, stop. Stop this madness. That's what it's about. You know, one council member recently wrote a story in one of the papers. I see one of our reporters here, so make sure we're getting the quotes correct tonight, right? One of them wrote a story saying, Sam Farr wants to keep us poor because he doesn't want us to put nodes out there. I said, it's not Sam Farr keeping us poor, it's all of you doing the same stupid things that are keeping us poor. Sam talked about the goose that'll lay the golden eggs. Instead of us nurturing that goose, we want to cut him up so we can have some pate. I don't understand the madness because we do have this incredibly beautiful place we live in. And anybody that ever comes through here will tell you. Now, I'm going to tell you a lot of stories tonight of my adventures here as mayor and some of the craziness. But first, it's important to recognize the treasure we do have. We have the opportunity to have that goose that lays the golden eggs. We absolutely do. So, I can start by telling you some of the stories early on in my life. I've been in construction for 30 years, and people today think I'm anti-growth. But that's not true. I'm absolutely against dumb growth, but I'm for smart growth. And I've been saying that for years and years. Now, I'll tell you a story that happened to me when I first moved to this area back in the early 90s. I was at a meeting with one large developer. And on their wall, they had all these pictures of all these developments in different communities with parks and green space and all these great things. And then they had a picture of their future development in Hollister. And all it was a bunch of lines on where the houses were going to go. So I said to them, why aren't you doing that in Hollister? And they turned around, looked at me, laughed, and they said, I'll never forget this, because they didn't ask. They didn't ask. And I was stunned, and I said, you know, someday you're going to regret that. But you know what? When I became mayor, what did I find out? We don't ask. We allow these things to continue and continue because we want more and more growth, and the answer always is, we'll fix it tomorrow or mañana. That's how we got into trouble in this community. Before I became mayor, the city was on the brink of bankruptcy. We owed $10 million for side funds and all these different funds we owed a lot of money on. We only had $1 million left. I said, guys, we got to clean this up now. Well, we can't afford to. Oh, poor us, poor us. We need to build more houses. Look, nobody's building right now. We got to fix this problem. So I'm going to ask you guys tonight to whip out your calculators. We're going to have some fun. But here's the first lesson that made me realize we're in trouble locally. I asked, what do we owe? And one of them was $10 million. Okay. What interest rate? 7.5%. So I turned around and said, we're paying $750,000 in interest a year on this loan? And everybody stopped. This is all the top people of the city. Looked around, said, where'd you get that number from? I thought it was a joke again, another joke on me, right? So I said, 7.5% of 10 million is 750,000. So that's when they got their phones out and started punching numbers. And then they said, but how'd you get that number? And the finance guy turned around and said, he's right, 750,000. To which they all responded by, we've been paying $750,000 a year in interest. So I knew I was in trouble. But I was able to convince, at that time, 2 other council members, and we attacked those numbers. We attacked, and within 4 years, we paid off $10 million in debt.
Wow.
It was good. But then I said, now we need to take this money, start getting it ready, because we need to start fixing roads around here. And the answer was, why? Now, to be fair, this was before the disaster hit us with our roads. And I said, because they're going to start failing if we don't start putting money, big money towards this. Nope. The fight went on. The fight went on. And they started taking money, using it for different things. Eventually, I convinced them to do a study of our roads locally. And we were putting about, if we're lucky, $600,000 to $800,000 a year towards the roads. The person came in, did the study, and said, well, if you want your roads to look the way they look today, you need to spend about $4 million a year. If you want them to improve, you need about $6 million. If you want really nice roads, about $8 million a year. To which everybody looked at each other and said, what the hell are we going to do about this? I said, we need to start putting money aside correctly. We need to start planning for our future. We need to have a better vision because this is not working. And as I went around and kept going, I just kept hearing the common theme of more houses will solve our problems. More will solve our problems. So I went to the state at a meeting, and I went there because somebody told me our property tax level is so low, it's the state's fault, and wow. So I went to one of the experts there, and I said, look, we need our fair share of our dollars here. And this, I'm going to be asking you to take your calculators out here. He looked at me and gave me that look like, what are you talking about? I said, well, we're not getting our fair share. All the other counties get more than we do. He said, that's not the way it works. All counties get the same amount of revenue. It's how it's divided in your communities. And that's not going to change. That happened with Prop 13. So I came back and I started demanding more information on our numbers. And here's where it stunned me. When I finally got the information, our percentage of city was 3.67. Anybody have a calculator out yet? So on a $500,000 home, the base is $5,000. 5,000 times 0.0367 gives you how much? I see a calculator going there. $185. That's the city's portion of property tax. Yes. This is the point where I realized I wasn't so pro-growth anymore. Okay? I realized at that moment we have a problem and we're about to make it worse. It's the same point where I said if we're going to approve any more homes, we need to make sure they're taking care of all their infrastructure day one and into the future, or we're going to go broke again. And the day where it all turned on me, where I said absolutely no more, was when a project right down the street, Santa Ana Road, we were reviewing it, and I thought, it's looking like a pretty good project, not bad. But from that development to the school, that was right block away, needs to be improved. So that way the kids can get to school safely, and the community can go to downtown safely, whatever they want. The answer was, that's not our problem. And the developer said, well, I'm not paying for it. You guys pay for it. At that point, I said, enough is enough. We need to fix this general plan. We need to make sure we don't do these crazy things anymore, because they come back to haunt us, and they are expensive. I learned that day that suddenly I didn't have any more friends in the city. I learned how quickly all these people that supported me turned on me, because I said we cannot afford to do projects like this anymore. Leapfrog development does not work. And that's been the fight since at City Hall. When I heard about Measure K and what they were doing, I nearly fell out of my chair because I knew what they were doing again. See, what they do is they try to get something built as far out as possible so that services have to be brought there. And once the services are brought there, then they can start building out all these different areas.
Yeah.
Clever, right? Clever. But they don't want you to know that. They play this game of, what are you talking about? Whoever said anything about any houses being built over here? We literally have this conversation about a project down the road. If we approve this, you're going to build all those homes. I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody said anything about homes. Even the councilor said, nobody said anything about homes. Let's approve it. The minute they approved it the following week, well, we can build about 800 homes out here, and that's what we're going to start doing. It might be 30 homes today.
Oh, yeah.
I can guarantee it's going to be more than that.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of these projects aren't being presented to make a few bucks.
No.
And they talk about sales tax and money is going to pay for all our services.
Yeah.
Who had the calculator out there? You guys are pretty bright. Let me ask you this. One of these businesses claimed we're going to make at least $2 million in revenue. What's our portion of 1%? How much does that equate to? Anybody got that number? Try $20,000. $20,000 in sales tax revenue. What is that going to pay for? You know what it's going to cost to fix the roads to lead to those areas? What's going to cost to fix the roads to maintain that area annually? What is it going to cost to maintain sewer lines? What is it going to cost to maintain the water lines? What is it going to cost for police and fire? And I guarantee it's way over $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're fitting into this old little thing. This is going to help us. It's not. Sam Farr said it best. And this is really important to understand. If we do not have a vision on what we want to be, how are we going to get there?
Right.
If the best we can do is try to create truck stops along Highway 101, when there's a mission a mile away, what in the world is our vision? Because he's right. People from around the world want to come to our missions. They want to go to our national park. They want to go to Hollister Hills. They want to go to the wineries. They want to do all these beautiful things. All over our community, we have potential. But we have to harness this energy to make that happen. Otherwise, they beat us again. Roland and I were at a conference recently, and it was kind of funny. They said, things happen because of that crazy person or crazy group of people. And it showed an example of this concert, and one guy by himself just dancing all crazy. Everybody's laughing at him at first. But then somebody else jumps in with him. And there's 2 crazy guys dancing. And then there's 3 guys. And then 4. And all of a sudden this wave of people run out there to go dance with them. A movement was created. You are the movement. It is time to start gets lonely being the only crazy person at City Hall. And I'm so blessed to have Roland with me, so it doesn't make me feel so bad anymore. But it's all of you knowing it's all changing. When we do this initiative, it's over. No more developers telling us what we're going to do. It's time for the community to tell everyone else, here's a better way to have a better life.
Thank you, Nacho. Thank you very much for all your work and your sustainability. You've gone through a lot, and we appreciate your efforts. The next guest is a good friend, and Andy and his wife Mary. We have a lot to be thankful for them, not only for No 1K, but they were also the co-founders Jay, we banned fracking in San Benito County. And then they took it to Monterey County in 2016, and they passed Measure Z, which banned fracking in Monterey County. And then they were very instrumental in creating Monterey Bay Power, which gave us renewable energy. They were one of the first to call out PG&E for their exorbitant rates. And so they were very instrumental in developing the Monterey Bay, which is 3 counties, San Benito County, Monterey, and Santa Cruz County. So we have a lot to be thankful. Andy and Mary, they work tirelessly day and night. And they're volunteers. They don't do it for money. They do it for the love of the environment and the love of the community. And I can't say enough for Mary and Andy. He worked 20 years in the prison system as a teacher. He's a tough guy. And he also served on the Aurora School Board, so it's my pleasure to give the mic to Andy.
Thank you. I hate to steal from my friend Bernie Sanders, but it's not me, it's us. The reality is, as much work as Mary and I do, there is no way that in 2014 that this community, that we could have beaten the most powerful industry on earth without the people of the community of San Benito County. It made news all around the world when this county was the first county in California to say no to fracking. And they outspent us 18-1. No campaign, this county had never seen anything like it. The bombardment of TV commercials and mailers and internet and people who are hired to destroy our signs and lie to our people. We had never seen the likes of it before in this county. And yet, hundreds of people went out and collected the signatures. Hundreds of people put on events and talked to their friends and neighbors. And the real canvassing began as the people of this community started talking about this issue in their schools, in their churches, in their neighborhoods. And by the time all of that happened, with all these people doing all this, the oil industry didn't have a chance. They didn't have a chance. We won that in 2014 with 59% of the vote. But more than that, what is so shocking, and what we're going to see again right now, is that 2014 was one of the country's lowest voter turnouts. Newspaper articles were written all about whether democracy was dying in the United States. In California, on that election, there was a 42% voter turnout. Our elected officials, Angela Curo, who runs the office, wonderful person, she predicted at that election that we were going to have a 35% voter turnout in 2014 because San Benito County historically ran under the state average for turnout. By the time all of you got involved in that discussion and all of you talked to everybody, we had a 58% voter turnout. That is what's happening again here with this Measure K, with no on Measure K. Almost 100 people went out, and this is a referendum. There's initiatives like Measure K, and then there are referenda. This, as far as we know, is the first county-wide referendum in San Benito County's history. And the reason why it's a first, it is so difficult to do a referendum because you are responding to something that a governing body does. You have 30 days after they do it to get something written up by lawyers, to get it out to a print shop, to get people lined up to do it. And by the time it's done, we only had really 25, 26 days, and we needed 2,060 signatures to qualify for the ballot. We collected 4,428 signatures. That gave us a head start in all this because thousands of people in this community already knew about the issue. That's what happens when you launch a referendum initiative. I myself collected 840 signatures. What I learned, because I probably talked to 12 or 1,300 people at the county fair, at the post offices, in the shopping centers, and I frankly, by the end of that, probably had a better feel for what the people in San Benito County were thinking about growth and about their lives than any single person in this county, because I had intimate conversations with so many of them. And that gave us a heads up, that gave us an advantage when we framed our literature, because we knew exactly what the people were thinking and what they needed to hear. Because unlike a poll that you spend $12,000 or $15,000 to do, we didn't spend anything for that, and yet we knew what a substantial portion of the people in this county were thinking about the concerns. And one of the things that they were thinking was, okay, yeah, it seems pretty stupid that they're doing this stuff out on Highway 101, but what about the rest of this county? What about Hollister? You guys should have been here 10 years ago, 20 years ago. These people are destroying this county.
Yeah.
That's what people were saying to us all over. And we heard it over and over again, and it became obvious that we had to do far more than stop a stupid series of cancerous nodes out on Highway 101, that we had to address the whole illness that is going on in San Benito County. I'd like to talk about systemic corruption, because this is not the kind of extreme corruption where one person comes in and bribes somebody, or you have some of that, or or one person gets a special project that enriches them, but it's a pattern of activity where they listen to just certain people about what we should be doing in this county, and they accept a certain mindset about what's good, and it sets in motion something moving to the point where suddenly people see all around themselves all the farms disappearing,
Yes.
developments going up where they never even knew there were developments, no one even told them that these things were happening, and people being drawn in. And I have no resentment for the many people who come here to escape life in San Jose. I don't resent them, because I would want to leave those places too. But they come down here maybe to some open house by Anderson Homes or Candy Homes or something on a Saturday. They have it in the middle of the day. They drive down and say, that wasn't bad, it took me 45, 50 minutes. I can get to work up there, and then they move here, and then they discover it takes them 2.5 hours to get to work, and 2.5 hours to come home, and their life is hell. They have no time with their families, they're stressed out. I met a woman who said, I'm on the verge of being the victim of domestic violence because my husband spends 2.5 or 3 hours twice a day there. The other day he came home, he was so frustrated, he punched a hole through the sheetrock of our wall. I talked to a couple who get their dialysis in Morgan Hill. Both of them are dialysis. They schedule their dialysis for 2 o'clock in the morning because that's the only time that they can guarantee that they can get there without not running into some kind of traffic jam after going through dialysis. That is a sign that there's something tremendously wrong. And so, no unmeasured K is emergency medicine. It's just first aid. They rushed this stuff ahead. We had a short time to stop them from rezoning this area because once it's rezoned, then they do have grounds for takings, for suing the county, and they made it clear that once they got this zoning, they were never going to stop before they got these until they got these developments done. They told us that they would do environmental review around each project. It doesn't matter whether you do environmental review because these properties will now be owned by other developers, and if the county did have the nerve to tell them you can't do this, they would sue us because they had just bought property that was zoned commercial. So there's no later review on this stuff. And when they tell you that there's going to be later review, they're just lying to you because it's not going to make any difference, that later review. And so that's the emergency medicine. You may have seen in the paper, and you will, if you look at the freelance this week, there'll be a legal notice for the Citizens Initiative that is going to be launched. We're going to have to start collecting signatures on the 29th or 30th. This initiative will address this issue of those 16 nodes in this county. What it does is it takes all of those nodes off the map. It amends the general plan and basically says there will be no more conversion of range or farmland to any kind of other use outside of our city areas without a vote of the people. What that does is it addresses what Jan said, which is no longer will there be this token, check-the-box kind of participation by the people of this county, because no project will ever get approved unless they actually have an open and transparent process where they can show us what the benefits are of this development, what the costs are of this development, how are they going to deal with the roads, the water, the schools, what we're going to get out of it. And if it will clean up the politics, because the politicians themselves will not be able to deliver a project without us, unless they want to bribe us all, which I don't think they want to do. So it will clean us up, it will slow this process down, and I can tell you from talking to the people in this county, it will slow down for quite a while, because everyone knows that the infrastructure in this county cannot handle the growth that we've already experienced. It cannot handle it. And so we have that initiative, and on Friday, I believe, or soon, we'll be introducing another initiative that deals with the city of Hollister and creates an urban growth boundary, draws a line around Hollister, and no more annexing of farmlands into the city without a vote of the people.
I love you, Andy.
What that means is not that we can't ever grow, means that we as a community will assess when it's time to do some more expansion and whether it will work for us or not. How we want to do it. So if you take those two issues of drawing a boundary around the city and of not allowing the cancer to metastasize in nodes along our thoroughfares, between those two, we should begin to get a handle on our problem. We still have a bunch of projects that have already been approved by, frankly, irresponsible elected officials, and those we have a lot more problem with because they've already been zoned, and we will be in battles with the developers who've been told they can do things. We may still be able to push back and negotiate some better mitigation and some better benefits in the process if we get the right kinds of people elected to our city councils and to our county supervisors who are willing to negotiate.
Smart people.
Yes, smart and tough people who see themselves as responsible to all of us and not to their contributors. So if we get the right kind of folks, we can minimize some of the damage that unfortunately is already locked in. But what we can do is make sure that we don't have a cascading disaster in this county, and then we can begin to refocus. When people talk about vision, one of my favorite quotes ever is by Rabbi Hillel 2,000 years ago. He said, "If you don't know where you're going, all roads will lead you there." Finally, so on these two initiatives, just as I frankly, I have to tell you, I don't want to collect another 800 forms on both of these two. I spent 25 days in the parking lots of Target and Safeway and Nob Hill and by the post offices. It was hot, and I was out there for 5 or 6 hours a day for those 25 days. My wife collected 400 or 500, many other people collected. We had, and we talk about other people who treasure this area. There's a man named James Starkey Wolf. You may have seen him, tall guy, who looks like he's dressed like a Native American. He lives in Prunedale, and he was camping in his car and staying and out every day helping us collect the signatures to get that on the ballot. That phone call that I got is from a young man, well, now I think a younger than me, man, and from Santa Cruz, the lone mentor lives in Santa Cruz, who's been coming every weekend for the past 6 weekends to help hand out flyers and talk to people to help us win this, to do no on K. And he's ready to come and help collect signatures again. The Amamutsan, who can't live here in this county anymore, even though they're the native people here that live in the valley and other places, are sending people to help us collect our signatures. So what I'm urging all of you to do is to lighten our load, to line up and volunteer, because if everybody in this room collects 25 or 30 signatures, then a few of us won't have to spend the next 2 months in parking lot. I guarantee I'm willing to collect a few hundred. But with 2 different initiatives, I don't want to have to collect 1,600 myself. And so we can do this, and I look forward to working side by side with you on all of this. What we're doing is not just ensuring a better future for ourselves in this county, we're also restoring what the initiative process and the referendum process was designed to do. We're restoring and reviving the democracy that we all depend on. Thank you.
I don't know how you follow Andy, but it's tough. It's a tough one to follow. But Andy, we do appreciate you, and I would like for more volunteers to step forward and do your part. Andy, it would lighten up my load too, because Andy comes to my house and eats every night. And I'm the dishwasher, my wife's the cook, and I wash dishes, so it would help me too. And if we get more volunteers out in the community, we wouldn't have to wash as many dishes. Anyway, I feel good about it. I feel good. The mayor's on our side and the community's on our side. We're going to win this no on K. And I think that's going to motivate more people to step forward, hopefully. We do have a few other people, two more people, briefly. I'd like to introduce Colin Kosmicki. Now, Colin, I got to know in 2014, and he was the editor of the Freelance at that time. And he had an advisory board that kind of, well, that's a long story, but anyway, he was kind of like trampled down. The real Colin didn't come out until recently, and Colin has become an ally of ours, and he's a supporter of No on K. And actually, he's the only one of the 5 candidates to step forward, and I give him a lot of credit for that.
As Larry said, I'm the only candidate in the District 2 supervisor race who's against Measure K. District 2, of course, is the district where these nodes are being proposed, so I think that is very significant. I like what everybody said up here. This is such a great panel, so I think we should all give everybody another round of applause. I will say Jan Saxon, I'm a huge admirer of hers. She talked about 1% growth cap we had years ago and how the affordable housing requirement was eliminated. Well, I can tell you, if I get elected on my first day in office, I will be proposing that we re-implement that 1% growth cap. And that we eliminate the option for developers to pay in lieu of fees, and that we require developers to build affordable housing in our communities. So for me, this whole debate about Measure K has been really intriguing. It really comes down to truth and fiction. And when you get into these debates, I think we all know what the truth is. And you just have to put out the facts. It's nearly 1 million square feet of new development. It's 4 shopping centers. They can call them nodes or whatever they want to call them. These are 4 shopping centers. There are 120 houses in the plans, despite the fact that the Yes on K side just explicitly denies this, even though it's literally in the ordinance. So I don't know how that works, but you tell them about this housing, and even the current supervisor just flat out says there's no housing. He gets into debates with people on social media. It is nonsense. There's 120 houses in the plans. And so what I would say going forward, this is really just the beginning. What Andy just talked about with these 2 initiatives that are coming up, you know, this Measure K debate has been it's been really heated. There's been a lot of antagonism. There's been a lot of anger. And, you know, I understand that's part of politics. But what I really enjoy about being a part of this group is that in my opinion, we've stayed out of that. This has really only been about just telling the truth. This is urban sprawl by definition. This is leapfrog development. I got to credit Mayor Ignacio Velasquez, who brought that term up, and you just have to think about it for a minute. And of course it's leapfrog development. It completely fits the definition of leapfrog development. You're leapfrogging over all this agricultural space, and you're building developments way out here, miles away from core services. It makes absolutely no sense. And then you get into the traffic issues. There's no traffic studies. There's no cost studies. Those are facts. Those are all just facts. And so what I would say going forward with the next 2 initiatives, because I really believe the public can feel that. They understand when you're just telling the truth and you're not getting into just calling people names, being angry, putting laugh emojis on people's comments on social media, just telling the facts really comes out in the end. And I believe that's a big reason why No on Measure K is going to win. And I think it's a big reason why, as long as we stay on track and just tell the facts. Talk about how this community's development has exploded and we don't have the traffic infrastructure to support it. And that's just the truth.
Yes.
And just tell the truth going forward. And we will win these other battles as well. I truly believe that. The last thing what I want to say is, I've also, it's really, it didn't take very long for me and others like my friend David Huboy to realize when you start to just look at what Measure K is, it doesn't take, and you start to dissect it, just as an objective person. I've been a newspaper man my entire career. I've been an editor for 13 years. I'm trained to be objective. I'm trained to be fair. And I'm telling you that NOAA Measure K is absolutely right. And when it comes down to it, I found that the people in this room, the people on this side, have shown such great character. And this room is full of good people. You know, and you see the debates, whether it's social media or whether it's in the forums we've had, and there's just a lot of name-calling and antagonism. But in the end, this is a group of really good people. I mean, Andy Shah-Karan, Mary Shah-Karan. These people are giving their time. They're giving their lives for causes they believe in. Andy was, like it was we talked about earlier, was an educator in prisons. I mean, I don't know if it gets more high character than that. All right, Mayor Ignacio Velasquez, he is a family man. He is a true family man. He is a successful businessman. He got involved in Hollister politics because he loves this city. Sam Farr, I cannot think of a greater champion for the environment in the world than Sam Farr. He has represented our community in the finest way, and the California coastline, our environment of California, is such a precious asset, and his entire career, Sam Farr has stood up to protect that, and I want to thank him for that. And Benito spent 2 decades as a planner in San Benito County. He spent 2 decades protecting our assets, protecting our beauty, preserving our rural character. This is what he is defined by, Rob Mendiola. Jan Saxton. I mean, does it get any better than Jan Saxton? She is really, truly, to me, the heart and soul of Aromas. She's given up a lot for our community. She's been involved. She talked about being involved in the general plan process, even though it was a sham. All right, but she goes out of her way to be involved. And so my point is this, that this is a good group of people. And as long as we show that going forward, we show that we're high character, we show that we have good intentions, there's no way we're losing. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. One more person, Adam Bolanos Scow. Adam is
Very quick, there's a nice lady here who wants to make an announcement before Adam. Is that okay?
Okay, sorry to cut the line. My name is Monica. I'm a nurse at St. Louis Regional, and I work tonight, so I have to drop dead leave here like in 15 minutes. So, I'm the lead organizer for Bernie Sanders here in Hollister, you know, I support Bernie for many reasons, but one of them is that he believes in Medicare for all. I see a lot of patients at the hospital who are in bad shape because they weren't able to go to the clinic ahead of time or afford their medications. And so it's a very important issue to me. I belong to one of the largest, or to the largest nursing union in the country, National Nurses United. And we've endorsed Bernie Sanders because we see the need. We see the need, and we're for Medicare for all. So I'm here tonight. I want to thank the Measure J, or the
No one paid.
No, but, you know, I'm from the, you know, the band tracking thing too, so I want to thank the NOAA K people for allowing me to have this announcement. I think, I don't think K is going to pass. I'll tell you that because I've been out canvassing, and you can't shake a stick in this town without knocking over 10 NOAA K lawn signs. So I'm up here because we're going to be canvassing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday in this town, and we need support. So if you are so inclined to even give 1 or 2 hours and maybe even knock on 20 doors, that would really help us out. If you think that you could knock on these doors, could you raise your hand? Oh, awesome.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna connect with you right now, get some information, and then we'll follow up later. If any of you thought that you couldn't commit tonight, but that later on this weekend you thought, oh yeah, you know, I can. We're gonna meet at the McDonald's, the old McDonald's on San Felipe at 10 a.m. on both Saturday and Sunday. So if you want to send folks our way, then we're happy to welcome them. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. One more speaker is Adam Bolaños, and he is a candidate for Congress from our district. And he's a former director of Food and Water Watch, which is very dear to my heart because he hired my son. My son is working in Southern California. But Adam, you talk about an environmentalist. Sam Fryer is very much an environmentalist, but Adam is a close second. He's very much for protecting the environment, and he has a few words to say.
Thank you all for coming out. My name is Adam Bolaños. I am the only candidate for Congress who is for no on K. I'm also the only Democrat running who's not taking corporate PAC money. I want to tell you why I am for a no on K. Our groundwater resources are the most critical resource we have in our district. And we have to stop overdrafting our groundwater and protect our groundwater. Otherwise, we are out of here and the economy is tanked. I'm very concerned about these nodes and their impact on the groundwater and aromas. We are already seeing major groundwater overdraft in the aromas in the Pajaro Valley where I live. So we need to engage in the kind of smart planning that this panel is talking about. And let's talk about affordable housing. We have for too long, ever since Ronald Reagan was president, we have been at the mercy of private developers for development, and that is wrong. We are spending trillions of dollars on war. My opponent and the Congress continue to vote to give Trump an increased military budget when we cannot afford affordable housing. When we can't fund affordable housing, that is crazy. So we're going to start funding real affordable housing. We're going to bring our tax dollars. We're already paying for it in our federal tax dollars. This is a matter of priorities. We've been giving tax cuts to the richest people. Jeff Bezos is worth $100 billion. Jeff Bezos, a contributor to my opponent, $100 billion. $100 billion. We give you $200,000 a day, new salary. About $92 million per year. How many years does she have to make $92 million per year to get to $100 billion? Over 1,100 years. The bipartisan consensus is not working, folks. I want to be a partner with community leaders. I was honored to work with many of you on Measure J, Measure Z, Measure J in Monterey County. I helped stop the desalination plant in Santa Cruz. We got our work cut out for us. This is an amazing community. I know we can do this together. I'm all with you on that K, and let's pass this initiative to protect San Benito County. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mary, do you want to make the announcements about the, this is my wife, Mary, and people think I work hard. There's nobody I have ever met in my life who works harder than this person over here.
Andy and I were sustained a lot by Larry and where's Margaret, who feeds actually a lot of our volunteers
Wolf and Ramon, who are very avid campaigners, and a lot of other people here in this room who have come to meetings. Margaret's house, Larry's house, has been our campaign headquarters in Hollister. So thank you for your hospitality. The reason I wanted to have a little time now is because we are going to be launching another signature gathering phase, and so we are checking with our attorneys. It turns out that we actually may have more time than we originally thought, but we do have to be aware that we may have some challenges ahead. Andy and I were speculating on how the coronavirus might affect signature gathering if things get out of hand. Hopefully it doesn't, and so we can collect signatures. But I'm sure we can get through it. But our attorneys are figuring out a calendar. We thought we would have to start collecting for the county initiative, like on the 29th, which is even before Election Day, but we may be able to wait. We would like to do both the City of Hollister initiative, which the exciting news is that we think we're almost done. It will be probably submitted, we think, on Friday now. So we're coordinating with the attorneys, but what would really help us is if a lot of you would step up and help collect signatures, because it has been a rather long haul for some of us who've been really focusing on signature gathering and also campaigning for No on K. And now we have to do 2 more initiatives, which I feel really good about. I think that people in our community are really ready for this, because we have been consulting with Ventura County and Sonoma County. They did this over 20 years ago. And it was actually Napa that started first, and I think Ventura and Sonoma. They had such good success that Ventura renewed all the cities. There were 8 cities and 1 county. They renewed it all together at once in 2016 and extended these growth control initiatives till 2050. So it must have been very good for the communities, otherwise they wouldn't have done that. I think that our county really has a lot of, as everyone has already said, wonderful resources. We also have, we learned during Measure J, the highest percentage of organic farms of any county in the state. That was a surprise to me. So we have some organic farmers, people here. So I think we could do a lot with agritourism as well as ecotourism and cultural tourism. One of our speakers at a previous forum was from Teatro Campesino. So anyway, I think that all of us can work together to create a truly unique community that we'll be really very proud of, more so than even now. Another kind of a unique Sonoma or Napa of the Central Coast. So I look forward, what we'll probably be doing is contacting all of you about signature gathering. And I also wanted to mention that we will have an election night party. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, Andy wants to have a big turnout. We have our, thank you to Fallon, who is here, who's our coordinator for the Honkin' Wave has been very successful. I think we've had 6 of them now. So we have one more, and we want a huge turnout. So it'll be this Friday from 3:30 to 5. 3 is it going even earlier? 3 o'clock to whatever, until it's dark. And so we would like to get a lot of people. There's 2 locations, one at San Juan Batista. Raise your hands, the San Juan crowd, Jackie and others who have been organizing it. So that one is right outside San Juan Batista on 156 before you get to Mission Vineyard Road. There's a really wide shoulder that's very safe. And then the people who in Hollister, we're going to be at Highway 25 and San Felipe, so that corner. And if we have a really huge crowd, some people will go to 25 and Shore. So you can just show up at 3 o'clock, but it would be really good if you could let Fallon, raise your hand, Fallon, know, so that we can anticipate, okay? So thank you so much, everyone. And I think we wanted to give a chance. I know Natasha was anxious to ask some questions. We didn't want to forget Q&A of our panelists.
You have to go back to the election. Announce the election morning.
Oh, okay. Election party. Okay, before the Q&A, I want to say that here on election night, we haven't actually figured out the exact time, but I think polls close at 8 o'clock. So maybe if people get here like say 7-ish. Okay, 7 o'clock. So we'll be talking about some get out the vote activities, but otherwise meet here at 7 o'clock. We're going to have, we think, a potluck here. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So potluck and so anyway, we'll have a good time, and you're all welcome to come. So thank you so much. I just want to open now for Q&A. Did you want to moderate again?
Yeah, so if you have a specific person you want to address your question to, I'll just pass the mic to them. So if there's questions, you want to, yes?
Wait, this lady had a question.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Closer to your mouth.
What surprises me a lot is that when I was really angry about all of this development, because everybody addressed the fact that we will have to put the infrastructure in, the sewer lines, the water lines, the roads, and I didn't realize it, but when I started looking at my real estate tax statement, there are lines and it tells me how much my real estate tax is. And then they add for the bond for roads, for the bond for schools, for the bond for water, for the bond, and it goes on and on, about 10 bonds. And they're not doing it, the Board of Supervisors, I guess, whoever it is that makes the rules about that, is not giving us all at one time. They're not saying we're going to have these many $1 million to cover infrastructure for the next 10 years. They're not doing that. They're doing it piecemeal. They are doing it 1 year, and then they float another bond a year later, and then another bond a year later for the same kinds of functions, but they are for different locations. And we are the people who are paying for the developer's profit. Why aren't we angry? Why are we taking it?
Thank you. We are angry.
Yes, we are. Well, do something about it.
Here's an amazing number for all of you. In the last 5 years, we have taxed ourselves over $500 million for improvements for growth.
Wow.
Imagine if we had used that money for quality of life in our own community. You're absolutely right. So here's another thing that is amazing for people. Schools. We know they're important, but here's how it really works. For 2,000 new homes, that's equivalent to a new school. A new school will cost about $55, $60 million. The amount collected from impact fees is about $15 million. Who makes up the difference? All of you make up the difference of that cost. So these are the realities nobody wants to talk about, but it's important that everybody knows the true numbers. That's why I always keep saying, if you know the numbers, you will make a better decision. If you don't, we keep repeating the same mistakes. You're absolutely right. Only so much we can afford.
The thing is that we keep electing the same kind of people. Nobody pays attention to the background or where the money goes for anything. We sit there and we take it. Why? Kick them out.
Yeah, we have to support candidates that think like us. Is there a question? Yeah, Natasha.
I just want to thank this lady, what is her name? And Heidi for what she said. And I...
Closer.
I believe that, that one of the problems is that we aren't educated. I myself, think I'm pretty much up on things. I didn't know they were floating bonds every year, year by year by year, and probably paying more in interest than is absolutely necessary if they did a long-term one. But what I suggest is that when this initiative is passed, we all get together to have a citizens committee where every month there's a town hall meeting to go over these important things that are happening in our county and in the city of Hollister and inform the public. Because unless we have an informed public, I mean, I've been gathering signatures and I ask people who their supervisor is and they don't know him. And maybe they've been here for, 20 years. Or they don't know they know what district they're in, but they don't know who their supervisor is. And part of it is because of just the stress of living and commuting and having to work 2 jobs to support one family. But I think if we could have a regular citizens meeting once a month and people get together.
Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. I think we're preaching to the choir, but I hope that there's some newcomers here. And I do believe that we are a force in numbers that, yes, on Measure K is not fully understanding our strength and our power. I live in San Juan, along with some other folks here that are closest to the 4 nodes. It's really disturbing. It's very sad that they're pushing this through. I agree with Colin that we have to go high when they go low, but sometimes it's really hard to do that. And, I'm a scrapper. I'm small, I'm a scrapper. But anyway, my question is for retired Congressman Sam Farr, who's still here. Okay, well, maybe someone else can answer. I was down in South County of Monterey today, driving back from King City, and it was beautiful. And I saw all the signage. They said Gateway to East Pinnacles, or Pinnacles, Gateway to Pinnacles in King City, also in Soledad. So I'm thinking, what happened here with the big disconnect in Hollister that our county supervisors, our politicians let us down by not capitalizing on this beautiful national park? And how do we get that as a lobby or an issue that we can push?
The mayor answered that.
I was at that ribbon cutting for the Pinnacles National Park, and I remember looking at Sam saying, wow, this guy pulled off the impossible. And right away we went to work trying to promote it here locally, and what we did was say, hey, let's change Airline Highway to Pinnacles National Park Highway. Instantly, there was a fight. So, strangest thing. So if you look at it now at San Felipe, at that point to, I believe it's Sunny Slope or maybe Sunset, it's Pinnacles National Park Highway. After that, it's back to Airline because the county did not want to change the name.
Is it about money?
No, here's the funny part. This is the name it's been forever and blah, blah, blah. So I did some research. Turns out, back in the day, it was called Pinnacle Highway. So we needed, as soon as we have our new supervisor here, these are the crazy things that happen in our community, and I've said it so many times, as Sam Farr, he's given us a goose. It's time for us to nurture it, promote it, have tourism be our lead economy. This is what we should be doing. How many of you have ever taken a trip to go look at tract homes? No. It doesn't happen. But I can tell you, everybody that's ever come to visit me, I do take them down Highway 25, and they all say the same thing. It's like you live in a movie scene. It's crazy beautiful here. And that's what we need to take advantage of. So it's just short-sightedness, that's all it's been. And with the new supervisor, I believe there will be 3 that will definitely promote that. So that's the issue.
Are there any more questions?
I got a question.
Okay.
I don't need a mic. Okay. My question is, do those petitions on the internet, are they legit?
Well, we can't, in terms of the petitions for what we need to do in changing things, you can't do it on the internet. The petitions for an initiative process has to be witnessed by the person who essentially signs an affidavit at the end of the petition. And so you can't even leave it sitting on a counter at a restaurant or something like that, because you actually have to sign saying, I witnessed these people signing. And so that's why you actually have to have a lot of volunteers.
Well, are those petitions on the internet legit anyway?
Well, most of them don't have any formal power. The difference between a referendum and an initiative is they actually have the legal power to compel action. You know, at the level, in this case, of the initiative, we're actually seeking to enact law that changes the way land use is done in this county. And further, once it gets onto the ballot, if we get enough signatures and the people vote it, the elected officials cannot change it. It can only be changed by another vote of the people. And so that, it's a very powerful law, whereas most petitions on the internet are more just opinion pieces. They're just trying to gauge opinion.
All right, and then the other question is, with what she was saying, how do we reverse those? Can we reverse those?
No, that's the difficult. Well, they could they could buy out the developers. If there was a piece of property that was out there, yes, that, for instance, I know that in Hermosa Beach, down south, they actually paid off because people had the right to do some oil drilling in Hermosa Beach, and the city council down there was willing to give in to the oil industry, and they actually did an initiative down in Hermosa Beach that forced the city to raise the monies to pay off the oil company so that they would surrender their claim on properties.
The answer is basically, no, you have to pay off the bond. You can pay it off early, but the bond has to be paid down. Because once it's issued, that's it. It goes out to the market, dollars are traded, and you owe that number, whatever that number is that's owed. You can pay it down earlier, and that's what we're actually doing with the sewer plant. We're aggressively paying it down rather than just taking the time. We just paid a $30 million chunk a couple of years ago, so we're aggressively doing that.
It's like paying off your mortgage.
It's like paying off your mortgage. You can accelerate, but once you do it, it's there.
Can we also sue the supervisors because they have done it without hearings? I have never heard of their having a hearing on the bonds. I don't think that they have ever published anything.
So it's important to understand too, a lot of the bonds you're seeing on your property tax are through the school districts. The school districts have their own elected officials, so the county supervisors don't make a decision on that whatsoever.
For the construction, they are not school. They are bonds that the supervisors approve, but most of the construction that I checked, the addresses, the bond information, match exactly where the developments are for the infrastructure. The road, the sewer, the water lines. They match every single development.
So I've looked into all these bonds and I'm so frustrated. One of the things I pointed out several years back is that if we slowed it down to a certain pace, we could eventually absorb these and get rid of them. But all we're doing is creating new ones. So the ones that are there now are through the school districts that issue those bonds. And that has their own board, elected board officials.
We just want to announce that our victory party will be here next Tuesday. What's 7 o'clock, Mary, or 6:30? 7. So it's going to be potluck. You want to bring something to share. And thank you again for all of yes.
Just the last
Questions?
no, not a question, just a statement.
Okay, one more.
Mary and a lot of the people that are boots on ground, I'm really thankful. A lot of us can't do that. You guys are great doing that. take those people that you know live in the county, send them a text message. Do not call them. People don't answer their phone. Send them a routine text message that implores them to vote no on K, link that no on K vote to Colin and also to Adam. Okay, and that's what you do when you ask these people to send that text to 5 more. And hopefully you can reach a lot more people. It's simple.
One more question for the mayor. How do we put a leash on the supervisors? Because their meetings are stupid. Who the heck can show up to their meetings? Does anybody know what time their meetings are?
Well, I will tell you that if we overwhelming, right now it looks to me that we have over 60% on no on K. If we get a landslide in this election, that is the kind of wake-up call that makes a lot of supervisors pay a lot more attention. When we passed Measure J in 2014, for quite a while, they were paying a lot of attention to what the public was thinking. Sadly enough, you know, you have to periodically get their attention in those kinds of ways. A big crowd coming out over an issue, an initiative, and also the ultimate is if your elected officials are not serving you, show them to the door. I mean, no one has the right to.
The way I've done it is I've been very vocal, getting the information out to the public, so the public speaks up. That has helped. Yes, projects have been approved, but nowhere near the number they would have been approved if the public didn't find out what was going on. So the public has become very vocal. It's slowed down that process. But it's all about all of you. You pointed that out. It needs to be, the public needs to know what's really going on. The public is extremely intelligent if they have the information. It's when they keep it from the public on purpose. And you hear some of those comments now about the public not being smart enough to make these kind of decisions. That's how you know something's up.
I just